Alright, match number 3. Our hand's a little bit weird, drawing this so early. However, we have a 1-drop, we have a Rancor, and we have some other creatures. So we're going to keep. And we're playing against Affinity. Turn 1 Springleaf Drum, okay. Let's see how fast they can follow that up. If we can stick a Rancor and a Vault Scourge in the air, that might be good enough to not die to 4/4s early. Flare Husks, so they can tap that for their colored mana. Second Springleaf Drum. Frogmite for free, which they can also tap for mana. They're dumping their hand. Let's see if they have any... What's the punchline here? If they have a Mirror Enforcer, that's going to be really scary. They can't cast it this turn, but they can next turn. Alright, bash for 2. Get some creatures down. Metal Sentinel. Vault Scourge. I'd rather play 2 things than 1 here, and I would rather get the Vault Scourge down here so I can play Rancor on it as quickly as possible. Down to only 2 cards in hand. They do have the Mirror Enforcer. If this last card is kind of bad, then we're fine. Although I guess they have the draw from the Chromatic Star we have to worry about as well. If this is like, let's see, Carapace Fortune, no, that's pretty bad for us. And they're not attacking here because they don't want to trade. The 4/4 for the 2/2s for some reason. I guess that makes sense. They'd rather wait till they have like a Galvanic Blast up to punish us for double blocking. Alright, so I'm going to Rancor this. I could also put it on a Nettle Sentinel to power it through, but I don't really think there's any point to doing that. Are they about to draw Galvanic Blast off the top? Hopefully not. Because then I lose my Rancor if the creature gets killed in response. I don't think there's any point in powering through a Nettle Sentinel 1 at a time, because they can just ignore the Nettle Sentinel and not block it. And then I would lose the damage race. But if I put it on the Lifelinker, I have a chance. Alright, I have some choices here. I could play this to get it down as quickly as possible. There's not really any point to doing that, because this is sort of my flood insurance. When I get to 4 mana, I can use the channel ability instead of casting it. I could play this without having regeneration up, which is kind of annoying, but they need to bolt this instead anyway. Or Galvanic Blast it. I could also play Quirion Ranger, because that gives me 4 mana guaranteed next turn if it survives. So I could channel out the Shine-In, but I most likely don't want to be doing this next turn anyway. I probably want to wait probably 2 turns before I do it. So I think the correct answer is just Riverboa. This is also a really good blocker. It's nice to get that down earlier than later. Not this turn, but starting on future turns, I can chump block a 4/4 for 1 mana a turn and keep regenerating this. So that's annoying for them for sure. And we'll see what they can do with their 2 cards. It's another Mirror Enforcer. We need another Rancor or something so we can get more life gain, most likely. I think we're going to be forced to trade off here. I don't think we can just take 10 like it's nothing. These 2/2s aren't getting in the next turn anyway because I'm not going to be using the channel ability on this yet. So I'd rather get rid of an artifact here than a non-artifact. So that's what I'm going to do. Trade goes as planned, and they pass with a single card up. Alright, we get to attack. Nest Invader is not great, but it does represent 8 life by chump blocking twice, which is... it's good. It's probably better than the land would be, since Quirion Ranger, like we said before, is going to let us channel the Shinin if we want to. Untap this, return this. We don't really need this Vault Scourge untapped because we're probably not blocking with it. in almost any scenario, but I want to leave 1 mana up for this River Boa at all times, just in case they think this is what they're supposed to remove instead of the Vault Scourge. Mashing with everything. Alright. So I am going to block here, block here, and I think that'll be it. I'm going to reduce their affinity count, and I'm going to save myself 4 damage by bouncing off of this Carapace Forger. And only take 4. And if we're only taking 4 a turn, that's great, because this Vault Scourge is gaining us 3 a turn. Alright, so I can channel that this turn, and I could force it to block here and get in for 6, but that's basically pointless. And it does let me attack with these two when I can't otherwise, because I don't want them trading with this germ. However, I'd rather leave this back to block anyway. And that means that I'm probably just casting the Shine In. I feel bad every time I say Shine In. I wonder if it's actually Shin In. Oh well. And I'm going to leave a land in hand for... I could leave a land in hand for Groundswell Landfall, or I could play it for double River Boa activation. I think I'd rather leave it in hand. And the reason for that is, if they spend 2 removal spells to get rid of this, or let me block and then regenerate, and then they spend a removal spell to get rid of it, I really don't mind, because that means they're pointing something at the River Boa and not the Vault Scourge or my face. 3rd Springleaf Room. Pretty pointless at this point unless they play an Atog. I could leave this Eldrazi Scion around to enable Morbid for Howl, or I could just get my 4 damage from it now. Go ahead and block. Regenerate. I think I'm going to wait a turn. Most likely I'll still be able to cash it in for 4 damage later, so I'd rather save it in case I do draw the Howl. Oh, there's a Groundswell. Well, always lucky. I'm going to go for the win here. Our opponent really hasn't been doing anything. I don't think this last card in their hand is useful. I'll leave back the Eldrazi Scion. There's no reason I would want to pump that instead of one of my other creatures, I don't believe. I guess it spreads out some value, but I'd rather leave this back to gain 4 life. Alright, so that's 6 damage, and I'm going to go for the win here. I'll point it at the Regenerator, so that kind of balances out my power the most. I could also put it on the Korean Ranger, but I'd rather them have to remove this in response and me get to regenerate it. Assuming they have a Galvanic Blast, which is really the only thing that can interact here, I believe. A Fling, okay. They're flinging their Germ token, it looks like, at the Vault Scourge to deal 1 damage. Okay, well, nothing I can do about that. I get my Rancor back. I'm going to go ahead and resolve this while they're tapped out. And what do I put it on? Not the Shine In, because that's going to eat all the blockers. So it's going to go on one of these, probably the Regenerator again. I think that makes the most sense. And we'll pass. Now we have them dead, unless they remove the Shine In and then block and block. Okay, excellent. Get to sideboard. So Scattershot Archer, not useful because the only flyer they play is Somber Hoverguard generally, and some lists don't even play that. Epic Confrontation, basically impossible to take out their 4/4s with it. Atog is also pretty difficult to take down. There's no real reason to bring that in. Tangle could be an interesting tempo card, but generally won't work. Elephant Guide, not great since they can remove in response, and in general just +3/+3 is a little bit less useful against them when their creatures are already so big. For example, if we attack in with a 4/4 or a 5/5, they can just block it or double block it. We haven't really gotten anywhere. For Gleeful Sabotage, bringing all of these in to blow up their lands and their creatures. And what are we taking out? Sulhana is good. Nice to have something they can't interact with basically in any way. Shining is good. River Boa is kind of good. Nest Invader can gain 8 life at worst, so it's nice to have 2 bodies for 1 mana. Vault Scourge, they don't have very many flyers, so it's nice to have something I can power up in the air. I can usually find a window when they can't cast Galvanic Blast in response. The Rancors are still good. Young Wolf can block twice, so even though it doesn't match up well against 4/4s, it kind of still does. Nettle Sentinel could potentially, even though it's kind of the all-star of the deck, could be something that's not as good in this matchup. Additionally, Quarian Ranger, Skargan. I like Vines for stopping them from targeting our creatures, and +4/+4 as a trick I think is okay. So Hunger also maybe not. I think Groundswell and Mutagenic are still pretty efficient. Mutagenic maybe because it doesn't really save from Galvanic Blast because it deals 4, and even on a 2-drop it's not going to do anything. Let's get rid of Galvanics. And then I have 2 more from this pile. In general, I don't really want to cut my creatures ever. And 1-drops are good with Gleeful Sabotage. I guess I'll just cut the Hungers. They're a little bit situational. And if you can't get Morbid on them, then they're pretty bad to only have 1 counter. So I'll submit like this. Alright, well we have lands and spells, and Rancor is good. But Vines aren't the best trick to have early. And neither of these creatures are something that we really want. We definitely don't want to have to play this on 1. This being played on 2 isn't that great, so I think we have to mulligan. If one of these Vines was like a Gleeful Sabotage, I'd be tempted just to take it on the power of Gleeful Sabotage, 1-drop, 2-drop, Conspire Gleeful. But we don't even have our most important sideboard card, and our creature curve is pretty bad, so let's hope for something a little better. This is a better hand. Still no Gleeful, but we can keep this. Do we need the second land? I think we do need the second land, so we can play 2 1-drops turn 2. Now the question is Young Wolf or Vault Scourge turn 1. It's probably going to be Vault Scourge to try and enable Bloodthirst. Because even if they play just like a land into Frogmite, then the Young Wolf can't get through. Although I guess if they do that, then I can just... yeah, I can just put Rancor on the Young Wolf. That's fine. I'm going to save Vault Scourge a little bit longer. Well, it is nice to get Rancor on it as quickly as possible and start attacking, then they can just remove it potentially, so I think this is better. Alright, I might be having to trade this Young Wolf with a Germ token. I could Rancor, let's see what else they have. Frogmite. Well, that's a very good turn too. Mirror Enforcer. Okay, well, I wish I had played Vault Scourge now, because I'm not going to be able to get Bloodthirst. Alright, Vault Scourge. I'm going to play this other Young Wolf out instead of playing Rancor when the coast is clear, because I don't want them to know the Rancor is coming. Additionally, I can like double block 2 Young Wolves on a Frogmite, and then I can double block the 2 Young Wolf tokens, or not tokens, but the 2 Young Wolves with counters on Mirror Enforcer. And if they try to, you know, remove one of my Young Wolves after I block, then I'm not really getting that blown out. They're removing 2 1/1s with 1 Galvanic Blast, which is not the end of the world. It also means that they're spending a removal spell not on my Vault Scourge. Alright. Going according to plan. Let's hope they don't have any more 4/4s or ATOGs to follow up here. ATOG is a card we really can't interact with. Ooh, this is bad. This is very bad. I can sacrifice 2 things to kill both of our 2/2s now. Let's see if they do so. Them sacrificing 2 artifacts is kind of fine for me here. Springleaf isn't that useful to them, but their lands kind of are. It makes their future ATOGs worse. Well, I'm safe to play Rancor. because this hits creatures without flying. So I think I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to hope that they go ahead and do this, because I want to be able to play a Skargan post-combat. And if they do not activate this Clark Clan or trade with a Young Wolf during this combat phase, then there's going to be no point to playing Skargan, because it's just giving them another 2/2 to wipe for free. Galvanic Blast. Ooh, that's bad. That's bad. Well, no Rancor for me. Well, I'm definitely going to be attacking here. No point in staying back to block whenever they can just play a land and sacrifice 2 things and move the blockers out of the way. The question is whether I play Skargan and force them to sacrifice 2 things. The thing is, this turns like a land even into a fine draw for them, because then they sacrifice whatever their duplicate land is, or maybe Darksteel if they draw Darksteel, plus a Springleaf Drum, or if they draw a Springleaf Drum, that makes that a great draw for them. And then they hit us for 4, and then we have no game plan whatsoever. We just keep getting hit for 4, chump block twice with Nest Invader, and it's spawn. Chump block with the spawn, try to trigger Morbid for this Skargan, and then what? Try to draw a Gleeful Sabotage to blow up this 4/4. But then any future 4/4s, we're still in, you know, a lot of trouble. I don't think I can give away the value. I think I just have to let them be winning the damage race and see what they do first, and hope that they just go ahead and pull the trigger on the Korra clan. Say if they draw an Atog or a Frogmite, they're going to want to go ahead and do this first, so they don't have to wipe out their own creatures as collateral damage. So try to get them to make the first move. It might have also been correct just to stay back and not block, and try to block this to force them to make the first move. But alright, there's an Atog. Well, this means they really don't want to do this twice now, because then they have to sacrifice 2 things to this and something to Atog. So 1, 2, then like 3 or 3. Alright, let's see what we can do. Vines of Vastwood. That gives me 6 power, which means they would have to block. They would have to sacrifice 3 things to survive it, so I'm going to attack here, I think. And then play Nest Invader as my chump blocker. Or double Skargan? I'm not sure. I could attack with just 1 thing, and then play double Skargan. Let's go ahead and attack with both. I'm going to play 2 blockers. I'm going to see what they do. I think they don't have lethal here, and they have to play around, say, get us having mutagenic growth, because if they go to sacrifice 2 things and one of these survives and is still able to chump block, that's pretty bad for them, because it can jump in front of the Atog and prevent them from being able to do too much. But if they just go for it, I think they do have lethal. Sacrifice something so Atog lives. Sacrifice 2 more things. So 1, 2, 3 to kill our blockers. Sacrifice 3 more things to Atog. So that's 4 total things to Atog, and that's attacking for 13. Leaving back these as blockers doesn't change that math, though, because the Clark Clan Shaman kills them just the same. The only thing that could have been different is basically leaving up Vines of Vastwood and these back to block, so that whenever they go for the second activation, I kick the Vines. But then they can just activate it a 3rd time in response and kill my creatures and have lethal the same way. So I need them to either not see lethal or play around mutagenic growth and not go for it, basically. And also I need their top deck to not be like Galvanic Blast. But it looks like they are going for it, and I think we're going to lose. But they curved out very well, and they had the early Atog and the Clark Clan Shaman in a spot where we couldn't really mess with it, and we didn't draw our Gleeful Sabotage, so it's kind of to be expected, and we just have to hope that we do a little bit better in Game 3. Yep, looks like they're going for it. Other ability, now they know we don't have mutagenic, and now they can sacrifice the rest and just kill us. Or just 1 more thing. And they play the second Clark Clan Shaman just to show off. Alright, and that's lethal. And that is the power of ATOG. If they didn't have ATOG, they probably wouldn't have been able to afford to do that there. Because they would have only gotten in for 4 and still had to sacrifice 2 artifacts to wipe our board. Alright. Alright, game 3 on the play. Show us the Gleeful Sabotage. Or 2 of them. Alright, there's one of them. And we have the creatures to combo with it. This is perfect. Maybe not perfect. Second Korean Ranger as an actual forest would be nice. But assuming we draw a forest, this is a pretty great hand. Technically, we could operate without drawing a forest for the rest of the game because these Korean Rangers get us up to 2 mana. And at least one of them is likely to survive. Opponent mulligan to 6. Let's see if they're slow enough that this Gleeful Sabotage can shut them out of the game. They put a card on the bottom. Alright, turn 1 Great Furnace, and they blast us. Okay, well that gets us a lot farther away from this Gleeful Sabotage, unfortunately. I'm going to go ahead and play a Rancor here, just because I can. I'm not going to play Skargan. I could, because it's good with Gleeful. But yeah, I'm just not going to. I'm just not. Then if they have another removal, I'll have wasted. I'll be left with Skargan, and I won't even be able to Conspire Gleeful anyway. And it's going all in too much on the Conspiring Gleeful plan. And Conspiring Gleeful a turn later than that is still a good play. Sure, it's great to wipe them out right after they get to 2 lands, but wiping out their Mirrored Fortress is nice too. Alright, probably sacrificing this to kill my Korean Ranger. I can't play anything pre-combat. I can Groundswell to survive this. Alright, so now's the question. What on earth do I do? I drew my second Gleeful. I have so many options here. So many. I can pass with Groundswell up. And just dare them to make the first move. I can play Skargan and say, if you want to wipe my board, you're going to have to sacrifice 2 things now. I guess they wouldn't sacrifice one of their lands right now, would they? So I think the correct play... I could also Gleeful one of their lands with their thing, but I think I'm going to try to Conspire every single one of these. I think this is the correct play. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to Korean Ranger back. Oh, man, I messed up. No, I didn't mess up. I was going to say I should float the mana. Should I have floated the mana? Yeah, I should have floated the mana. I should have floated the mana and then returned the forest. And then played the forest and then played Skargan. Yeah, that was a mistake on my part. Now there's going to be a window where if they actually want to sacrifice 2 things, they can. And I won't have Groundswell up to save 1. But they didn't go for it, because I didn't think they would, but that was still a misplay on my part. I need to pay more attention to how I use Korean Ranger. Okay, well this ATOG is going to be a lot worse when they don't have any artifacts. Alright, they're going to pass. And what to play here? If I Gleeful Sabotage for 2, they're going to sacrifice those 2 things in response to kill my creatures. Of course, that kills the ATOG as well. So I would be sacrificing Gleeful Sabotage for everything on the board dying, and 2 of their lands dying. That's pretty good. What if they sacrifice just a Springleaf Drum? Then the ATOG would survive. I don't think attacking first gets me anywhere, even with 1 thing. If I attack first, they could potentially sacrifice a Springleaf Drum to the ATOG and just mess me up, and I don't want to have to Groundswell in response. Because then I don't really have anything else to do with my turn. Oh man, this is complicated. I'm not sure this is the best option, but I'm going to do it. Because I can. They probably would have played Carapace Forger instead of ATOG if they had it, making this green mana a little bit less valuable to them. But the fact that they've already played 3 red spells means they've probably gotten as much value out of this Great Furnace as they need to for the moment. So I think I'm actually correct to get rid of this Tree of Tales, because they're more likely to top deck a Carapace Forger than they are a Tog. I guess they're not more likely to top deck a Carapace Forger than they are any of these three things. Maybe I'm still... Yeah, I'm probably still supposed to get rid of the Furnace. They probably don't have a Forger in hand. So many decisions. I could get rid of this in a land. I could get rid of 2 lands. I have a lot of different options. Maybe 2 lands was where it was at. I really don't know. This gives them any color of mana, though. And I have another Gleeful Sabotage to clean up their lands later, so I think that was correct. Okay, so they sacrificed 1 thing. Alright, so do I need to untap something and return a land? No. Get my Rancor back. They sacrifice a land. I'm not sure why they sacrificed that land. Oh, because I was going to blow it up anyway. They thought they might need it. Okay. Pass a turn. That was complicated. Next turn I get to either Nest Invader or Rancor, and then hope the second Gleeful Sabotage kicks them out of the game. If they don't play Darksteel Citadel, that would be pretty nice. Okay, they don't have a land to follow up, which is obviously great. Alright, I'm going to Rancor, and then I'm going to Nettle Sentinel or Groundswell, depending on what they do. If they, for some crazy reason, sacrifice their only land to try to trade, then I might Groundswell to save it. But I think this will be good enough, because now I get to deploy the Rancor, play another creature, and then next turn be able to Gleeful Sabotage again if they hit a land drop. Gleeful Sabotage is a very powerful sideboard card, and Affinity has to deal with a lot of powerful sideboard cards against them, unfortunately. Alright, they couldn't find another land, and they conceded. So thank you, Gleeful Sabotage. You definitely won us that match. I'm not sure we use it correctly. Could have been correct to hit the 2 lands. Could have been correct to attack with one of our creatures first. The 2/2 specifically, with Groundswell backup. But in any case, our cards were powerful enough, and we got it done. So on to the next match.